All right, I have a very special guest on the podcast today. Miss Sarah Martin is with us. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. How are you, David?
I'm good, thank you. I've been having a lot going on today, so I'm getting my talking juices flowing. So I'm super excited for this.
Nice. I just got my water, so I'm ready to go.
All right, we can go for a while. We're not going to go all day, but we're going to go for a decent amount of time.
Okay, sounds good.
I think I want to start by saying I know Sarah because I've worked a couple gigs where you've performed at live, and it just like blows me away. Your live performances, like, it's such an interesting dynamic when you meet an artist first, like live in person, and then listen to their stuff, like recorded songs, because I feel like it's usually the other way around. But I feel like for you, like, and I listened to some of your songs before we got on this call, and I was like, she sounds so much better live. And I really hope that's a compliment.
Yes. Okay, so I actually feel the same. Like every time I tell people to go listen to my music, I'm like, go listen to my music, but then also I'm like, but I sound like I agree with you. I think I sound better live in basically every scenario.
Right, yeah. Well, I think something else too, we kind of talked about this last time I saw you, was playing like the more local venues as opposed to like the cities like Boston. Cause you're from like central or like somewhere more rural in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, Lakeville.
Right. So like working in that scene, how do you like it better with like, the more local scene and where people kind of know you a little bit more versus somewhere like Boston where you've obviously performed before?
So actually, I don't have a lot of hometown shows because there's really not a ton of places for me to play around here.
Mm-hmm.
But they just had a Lakeville Arts Festival that I played last night. And I was super nervous going there because it is my hometown. And I'm like, is anybody going to show up to this thing? And I get there, and there's just like so much support and just like a ton of people there, and I just really, really appreciate it. So I think it's one of those things where when I play in Boston, it's like it's their crowd,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So obviously, I'm still giving it my all and everything, but there's something really special about being able to play in my hometown and really see all that hometown support and like people I used to go to school with and just like adults and even like younger kids are like looking up to me. I met with a Girl Scout troop yesterday before I went on,
Aw.
and they just thought I was the coolest thing since sliced bread, and it was just so nice.
Mm-hmm. Is it, and that must mean a lot to you, like as a performer coming from that community to have that kind of support. Like I imagine that probably carries you throughout like so many like other things.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like there's something about coming back to your hometown and having that hometown support that you're just like, okay, the people that know me and love me are on my side. They're in my corner, and like we're doing good. You know what I
Right.
mean? So no matter what else happens, I'm like, we're doing good. Foundationally, we're solid.
Right. Yeah. You always have that structure to go back to, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Speaking of like kind of moving around and stuff, like I think you're going on one soon, so I want to talk about this. You have a couple trips that you do. I think you did one like last year too, and you're also remind me if they're the same thing, but you have one in Nashville, and then you do one that's like kind of like an Angels road trip or something. Are those the same or are they separate?
Yeah. So what's the Nashville one? Or is it just like me going to Nashville? Because that could be a thing
Yeah, I was
too.
gonna say, I think just you going to Nashville, it seems.
Yeah, so I lived in Nashville for 6 years. It was a great experience. I learned a ton in a very short amount of time. But there's really not a ton of money to be made in Nashville, at least that I've found. I don't want to speak for everyone because I'm sure someone's finding their niche there.
Mhm.
But I just find financially I can make a lot more money in Massachusetts. So I definitely miss my friends in Nashville. So I like go back to Nashville to visit them. Maybe I'll play like one show at the Row or something, but that's about it for the Nashville. Unless I record, maybe I'll go back there and record. But the National Angels thing. So last year I got to volunteer at 16 of their 22 chapters.
Mhm.
I went on the road for 81 days. It was just kind of like a solo road trip to discover what makes me happy besides music. Because I think as musicians, especially if we've been doing this our whole lives, it's kind of like this is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are a musician.
Right.
And I kind of just got to the point in my life where I was like, okay, well, what if I wasn't? Who would I be? What
Right.
would I like to do? Like, what would represent me? I'm just like, I have no idea. If I woke up tomorrow and God forbid I couldn't sing, no idea who I would be. So last year, I just kind of made it a point. I was like, we're going to go on this road trip. We're going to go by ourselves. We're going to learn a ton of things. And that's what I did. And so this year, we're doing it again. It's only going to be 61 days this year.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I think it's going to be like five I'll end up going to because there's a ton of the chapters in Texas. So I won't be
Mm.
going to those. But so I'll still do five this year, just supporting them. And I'm kind of promoting it on my website. So maybe we'll get some more donations for them.
Yeah.
But
So how does it work? Do you like play for people like on this little trip, or was it like what's kind of like the basis of it?
so last year, the only times I played was if I wanted to busk and make some extra money. For those people that don't know what busking is, you just basically bring out your guitar, open up your guitar case, play. People throw dollar bills. Sometimes they offer you half-eaten macaroni and cheese and muffins.
It's not a bad payment, but not the greatest.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not homeless, but thank you,
Right.
appreciate it. Um, but yeah, and then there were a couple times where I did play for the National Angels just for like fundraisers, for like awareness, and just like for some of the families and stuff. But this year, I am sleeping in my Prius instead of getting hotels. I'm so excited
Oh.
about it.
I hope your Prius is comfortable. It sounds like
Yes.
it.
Yes. So I've already I've slept in it once out in New York a couple weeks ago. Put the seats down. I've got a air pad. I've got my sleeping bag. It's very comfortable. I'm very excited. I spent like $8,000 last year on
Oh,
hotels.
geez.
And I was like, I want to do this every year, and I'm not spending $8,000 every year. I didn't really plan last year. I just had enough money in the bank account where I wasn't worried about it. And then when I did the math, I was like, dear Lord, we're not doing that every year.
Right,
So
yeah.
I don't have room for the sound equipment this year. So maybe in some scenario, people will be able to get the sound equipment for me, and I'm still bringing my guitar, so we'll figure that out. But
Mm-hmm.
it's more of just like a personal growth trip than anything else.
That's
So
awesome. That's
yeah.
so cool. How do you think, and like I want to say it's a little ironic because you said it's kind of to get you away from music to realize who you would be without it, but how has that kind of journey helped you with your music? Like, has it helped you write more? Has it helped you like think of more ideas?
So I think personally, it's just like given me a more of an appreciation for myself because before I just saw myself as the musician.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, like going through this whole trip, and not all of it was fun. There was a time I got lost up in Yosemite in like a mountain, and it was like it ended up being like a horse trail. It was ridiculous. The trail there was like shrubs, little tiny shrubs in the middle of the road that I was trying to get my Prius through,
Oh
and
no.
my tire ended up blowing. I had to change it on the side of the mountain. It was like the one moment in my road trip where I was like, dear God, I might actually be in trouble right now. But, I figured it out. Like, I figured out how to, calm myself down. I was like, we're going to figure this out. It's going to be fine. We're going to get off this mountain. And we did. And I just feel like I just gained such an appreciation for, how badass I am.
Yeah.
And I don't think people take the time to discover that or give themselves credit when they figure it out. And I think I really just realized all that I'm actually capable of, that even if music did go away tomorrow, I would be able to figure out anything I set my mind to.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's really cool. And like the key word I love that you just used there was badass because watching you perform, that is the energy you give off. Like it's just like unreal. Like people need to listen to Sarah Martin. Like I'm such an advocate for her. Like
Oh
your
my God.
voice and like everything, your presence is so good. Like your set lists too are really, really awesome. I like how you merge like some songs. Like I can't remember like exactly which ones, but like you did a couple when I saw you. And your originals too, which I want to talk a little bit about.
Yeah.
Um, one that like you've done a couple times when I've seen you is Muddy Boots, which is like just so clever, like talking about like I'll have you talk about it more, but like the concept of like you always say girls that can get dressed up but also aren't afraid to like get dirty. Like I want to know a little bit more about how that song like came to be.
Yeah, so my sister and I, we grew up in like a neighborhood full of boys. There were three other girls down the road that we were friends with as well, but it was just predominantly males. And so we just kind of like, and we had an older brother, so we just kind of grew up as like tomboys and everything. But I also really like to do my makeup and, or, the thought of doing my makeup and playing dress up and all those things when I was a kid. And I think that like there was just a point in my life that I discovered that you could do both. Like you
Hmm.
didn't have to be like one or the other. Like you could be the girl that looks good when she goes out at night, but also is like down in the dirt with the boys during the day. And so I just kind of came up with this idea. I had this pair of cowboy boots that I bought the first time I went to Nashville, and I'd worn them for 2 years. I had gotten them resold twice. And finally, I went back and bought the same pair again. And I had like had them right next to one another. And like, so they were just like brand new boots, And then like these old boots that my cousin so lovingly said looked like my big toe was sticking out of them because like the leather had rubbed off of the one spot.
Right.
So like I just like that's kind of like where the whole idea kind of came together was just like looking at those new shiny boots and then the ones that were like you've been through some stuff like
It's getting there. Yeah.
and
Like
so that's like where the muddy boots came to be.
that's so awesome. I love that. It hits well too with the audience, like I said at some of your gigs. I think people really identify with that. It's a cool concept.
Yeah. I I feel like when I first came out with it, like I knew people would like it, but I don't think I realized people would like it as much as they do. So I'm
Hmm.
just like I think I'm more happy that a lot more people can relate to it, I guess.
Right, yeah. Something else too, like relatability and things like that. Do you have like certain artists that you look up to, like that have been your biggest influences in terms of like relatability or songwriting or performance?
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up listening to like a ton of local artists. Like
Hmm.
I got my start because local artists were like, "Hey, you want to get up on the mic at my show?" So like I looked up to those people. As far as like the people I grew up listening to, like the Beatles, the Beach Boys, I really like them. But yeah, like the local artists were like the people I looked up to when I was younger. So it wasn't so much like the people that were big and famous because honestly, I'm not really a names person. I don't know the names of too many musicians. I feel like that's changed a little bit being in Nashville because you're just like around it 24/7 and you can't not know names.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, back then I really was just like so engrossed in like the local scene and all the musicians that were older than me just like giving me a shot at their shows and letting me get up and stuff. But I mean, I like Miranda Lambert. I think she's got a really cool voice. I like her songs. Lori McKenna, she's actually
Hmm.
local from Stoughton.
Cool.
Love her lyrics, love her voice. I also love her presence on stage, which is like kind of so I find myself awkward on stage.
Just not how I see it, but sure.
Which is so funny because like that's how what I've told people and they're like, "No, you are not." And I'm like, "Okay, well great. Like at least my awkward personality comes off well to other people." Um but I had seen Lori McKenna play with Brandy Carlisle, who I also love,
Hmm.
at the Ryman in Nashville once, and like I felt like her stage presence was kind of like mine. Just like a real person telling real life stories. She didn't seem like this like star that was like on a pedestal. She just seemed like like even though there were a ton of people in the crowd, it seemed like you could also be having a one-on-one conversation with her in your living room.
Hmm.
And like I like also like aspire to have like put out those vibes because I want everything to be like kind of personal. I don't ever want to be like this person that people are putting on a pedestal. Like I want to be Sarah Martin, the girl from Lakeville,
Hmm.
who's sang into a hairbrush before anything else. Like I don't want people to look at me and be like, "Oh, she just got there."
Hmm.
I want people to like be realistic and know all the steps so that they know that they can get there too.
Right. And like growing up in that local scene must have been super fundamental for that. Cause I think that's like where it really starts for you, it seems, to have that immediate support group. Cause a lot of times, like you said, like artists and aspiring musicians can look up to people that are bigger, but you don't have that direct contact with them. So for
Right.
you, that must have been like huge to have people that you could just turn to in your neighborhood to talk to or to get advice or to like help hone your craft. Like that must be like super, super awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of where I come from when, because I know that they're, fortunately I haven't met them really. I just want to preface that, but I know that there are musicians out there that are like so fearful of like someone taking their spot
Mm,
that they're afraid to help somebody else.
right.
Where me, I'm like, there's enough spots for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Your spot, you do your thing in your spot, I do my thing in my spot. Who cares if people are coming over and like, liking what you do and liking what I do? Like, I feel like there's room for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to help as many people as I can, like, be able to do what they love. And like, if being a musician is that thing, like, I'll give them all the information I have to give. And
Right, right.
whatever they want to do with it after that, whether they're grateful for it and they like pass it on to somebody else or they hoard it, that's not my business. My
Right.
job is to just pass it along.
Right. We need more people like that, honestly. Like, especially in this industry, the music industry, because it's so competitive. Like you said, there are people that are afraid of somebody taking their spot. But I feel like that comes from pressure from like record labels and like executives and fans and whatnot. Like, but you're right. Like, there really is room for everyone. I think it just matters on finding like your niche and finding that, even like no matter how small, like finding that one group of people that just really resonate with you and your music is like all you need, really. And then you just ride that wave.
Well, I think part of the problem is too that people are getting pressured by what they see, like what the perception is of who they should be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're not actually being themselves, and that's why they're worried about somebody else also taking that, you know what I mean? Because okay, yeah, if there's 10 people that are doing the exact same thing because that's what they've been told to do, then sure, maybe there's only one slot for you guys. But like, if everyone fundamentally figures out like who they are, like what they want to represent in their music, how they want to interact with their crowd, all those things are like vastly different. So it would be crazy to think that there weren't multiple spots.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like when people are too involved in what people above them are telling them, which is one of those other things that I kind of discovered is like sometimes I just need to depend on what I think.
Right.
I don't always need to be chasing after a label. I don't always need to be doing what people say. Like, honestly, when I moved back from Nashville, that was one of the biggest things I struggled with was like, oh, people say you have to be in Nashville. But here I am back in Massachusetts making more money than I ever did in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you don't have to do what people are telling you. And honestly, I think a lot of the times when you continuously do things that other people are telling you that are disingenuous to who you actually are, all it's doing is holding you back.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Wow. Drop the mic on that one, Sarah Martin. Like, that's just, I'm like in awe. Like, that's just so, wow. I think we all need to go on this self-reflecting road trip that you've gone
Yes,
on.
I'm just saying, it's very good for you.
Just say it seems like it's really helped you think. And like I've traveled alone before. Like I haven't done like a trip like that. But God, like you need those moments to just do what you just did. Like that's yeah, like you got it all figured out. You don't need any of us. She's fine, everyone. Sarah Martin's on her way. Like well,
Yeah.
something that I was gonna say, which may or may not have helped, like you can be the answer, but like how has the bull like helped you with getting your music out there? Because obviously Jessica hosting the events and playing your songs on Sunday nights, I believe, like the bull has probably been a huge part for helping you kind of reestablish yourself back in mass.
Yeah. So it is really cool, like when people are like, oh, I heard you on the radio and stuff, because I am like so grateful for you guys. Because the thing is, like, as much as you don't want to care about what other people think, it is like perception is key.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are hearing my song on the radio it could be a good song before it got played on the radio, but after it gets played on the radio, people are like, "Whoa, it's on the radio now." So it's like I feel like I don't know, it's like some kind of like street cred, you know what I mean? That like my music is on the radio. That's the thing that kind of kills me about the whole music business is like, there are people that are working their whole lives and, maybe obviously they grow as musicians, but there's like a point where they're just like a super solid musician and nobody knows about them.
Hmm.
And then like in a blink of an eye, lightning in a bottle can happen and now everyone knows about them. And they're like, they're such a great musician. And they're like, they were a great musician before.
Oh my god.
but
Yeah.
but like you need people to like vouch for your music like the bull, and I'm so appreciative of people that are willing to do that for independent artists.
Hmm.
Like you guys are starting like the trend, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
you guys are like the first people to like vouch and be like, no, like her music's good.
Right.
So I just like appreciate you guys so much for doing that because as an independent artist we don't get a lot of opportunities like that,
Hmm.
so it does really help.
Right. Yeah. Cause it's like I follow a couple artists that I'm really into that are also independent. Some of them previously with labels, some of them never. Like it's hard. Like it really is hard as an independent artist to pay for things, like tour merch or to pay for like music videos or like there's so many things that you don't realize a label or people will cover until you're an independent artist and you're like, I gotta budget my money. Like, do I
Yeah.
have enough money to like pay for this trip or to go here? Like it's insane. So it's
Yeah.
like you said, whatever help we as like larger media can give independent artists, it clearly does help. Like,
It's huge. Yeah,
yeah.
like no, I mean it's literally huge that you guys can help independent artists because otherwise, I mean, we're just waiting we're just waiting for lightning in a bottle.
Right, you're waiting for like that switch and for everyone to be like, "Oh, I know Sarah." Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like,
No.
"But do you though?" I knew her like when she was performing here and there and like it's such a weird standard like you said how that happens, but it can be good and bad, I feel, you know.
Yeah. I've kind of come to the conclusion like I'm really happy with my career right now.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like I know who I am as a person. I feel like I don't have anybody pushing me to be anybody else. Um, I feel like as far as like labels and all that stuff, yes, they do pay for some of those things. But then, I mean, there's also the double-edged sword that like you owe people money on the back end
Mhm.
or you're not able to make your own money for a while. So like unless I found like a team of people I absolutely trusted, and I don't think that's the case in the majority of the time because I think people are so that's what they want. Like they want the record deal. They want that contract. So I think like sometimes there's opportunities that come along that they just like grab it. They don't question it. They don't
Mhm.
think about like what these people, what their intentions are. Like do they know them as a person? Do they care who they are as a person? And so I think that people get themselves into situations just because they want something so badly
Mhm.
and it's not necessarily the right decision for them.
Mhm.
So like, if it someday in the future if it came down to it, like it would really need to be the right specific situation. Otherwise, I just wouldn't take it.
Right.
Cuz I know like what's best for me and like my future and my authentic happiness and like that's very specific. And so like I kind of like hope other musicians like just take that into consideration when they're when someone's like dangling the carrot in front of them. Like
Right.
just really self-reflect and think about like is this the actual best situation for you or could you do better by yourself? Like I
Mhm.
said, I'm 32 now and I'm making a very good living for myself finally. It's been 20, 15 years for me to like get paid what I actually want to be paid, but I mean, I also don't have to pay a team. I don't have to do a lot of the things that other people do when they have bigger teams. So there's like, there's a catch 22 to all of it.
Right. Exactly. On that topic too, like of future and moving forward, like what are you trying to do next? Like what are some goals you have for yourself? You did just put out a single not too long ago that I want to bring up called Those Days. And keep in mind, everyone, like I am a little biased, but Sarah Martin's new song, Those Days, is fire. And this is coming from someone, cat's out of the bag. I'm not really a country fan, but I loved it. Like I thought it was equivalent to something I would hear on the radio, like in a major like country station market, whatever. And like obviously you've been on the radio, but it had like a very high level of like I can hear like a Carrie doing this or or a Miranda. Like it was good. So what's happening now? What's going on in Sarah Martin's world after that dropped?
Thank you. Yeah, so that song was amazing quality. Super expensive. As an independent artist, I gotta budget my money.
Right.
Um, so I'm not sure if I'll have a song come out this year or I'm gonna wait till next year
Hmm.
and come out with like three or something like that. Um, just because I did work it in the budget, but then I took all these road trips, so I guess it wasn't really an actual budget. Uh, but next year, that is the plan. I do want to release music because I actually have a ton of music that I've written. Um, I went through a breakup with ex fiance, so I like have so much music.
Sounds like a
And like,
Taylor album right there.
well, I think maybe some of those songs I might do like a Patreon for or something where I'm like
Ah,
not necessarily releasing it. 'Cause sometimes I think that there's like music that that you write because at this point like I'm kind of over that chapter, which is why I hate not releasing music every year
hmm.
because like you write all these songs, but then eventually you're like, okay, well, I'm over that part of my life. Like
Right.
we're already on to the next chapter. We're already writing like new songs about the next chapter. So it's kind of like one chapter gets left behind, but I still like want it to be out there, but maybe not like in like the normal typical sense. So we'll
Hmm.
see what happens with that. But I'm kind of working on a book.
That's cool.
Yeah, on like just like in my mind it's going to be a book series, but we're starting with one.
All right.
And just kind of like all of the lessons I've learned that have just kind of helped me become what I feel like is the most authentic version of myself so far.
Hmm.
That's something that I would love to be able to pass on to other people, because I think that's a that's a pretty big problem in our society. Is I feel like we're all like just trying to impress someone else.
Hmm.
And I feel like when you can really just like sit in your own skin and your own personality and who you truly are, like that's a beautiful thing. And I feel like being able to be the best version of yourself allows you to be a much better person for the rest of the world.
Hmm.
And I think like that's what we need, you know? Too many people are trying to impress other people. They're too hung up on things that they're not even sure is really themselves. They identify much too much with one thing so that they don't know who they are if they have to give that up. Just like views and everything. And I just feel like if people just were individually who they're meant to be, who they're
Hmm.
supposed to be, they can love themselves and other people so much more effectively. And I would like to put that out into the world.
Awesome. Through a book, which is a good way to do it. I'd say so.
Maybe eventually I'd like to get into coaching. I don't know.
Oh, okay. She's multi-talented, everyone.
I do. I have goals. I have goals. And
We
not all
love
of them
that.
involve music because I really do. I love music. But I think one of the other things that I've realized too is I don't always want to financially depend on music to do what I love. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I would like to just do what I love. I would, because a lot of times I don't play with a band because I would have to share my money with five other people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which sounds silly, and it kind of is, but at the same time, I got bills to pay. I have a lake house I want to buy myself.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like I do feel like I hold myself back in some creative areas because I'm still worried about financials. So I'm kind of like figuring out how to do like the passive income and how to do like other areas for my money as well. That way I don't have to depend on one thing so much.
Hmm. Well, I really hope all of these ventures work out for you. Like, it really sounds like you
They
got some
will.
They will. There you go. Manifest. They will
They
work out
will.
for Sarah Martin. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast. Before we wrap this up, why don't you let people know where they can find you and listen to your music or check out these other things you got going on?
Yeah, so you can either just go to my website, it's just sarahmartinmusic.com, or I also have Instagram and Facebook, Sarah Martin Music. Sarah with an H, Martin like the guitar, music like you'd spell it in any other scenario of life.
There you go. Because some people will get confused. We need to clarify. Thank
Yes,
you.
you don't know. H, is there no H? Who knows? There's an H.
Ah, perfect. Well, thank you, Sarah, so much again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, David.